celebrating 11 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Devin Driscoll.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible on Halloran Hilton Hill. And of course, these are great stories about great people who prove with their lives that anything is possible. My guest today is Devin Driscoll. Devin, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, here's what I think. Athlete, actor, Wall Street broker, athlete, actor, Wall Street broker. Yeah, let's start with those three. That's what I would expect. Wrestler, I'd never, if you told me, if you walked into a room and said wrestling, given I know your family, I know you, I would have picked actor, athlete, businessman, wrestling?
It was not the most natural transition, knowing my family, you might say. But, you know, when I was growing up as a little kid, it's just something I dreamed about. Obviously, I was very involved with sports growing up. But when I wasn't doing that, kind of my outlet was professional wrestling. I mean, I loved watching it. I couldn't miss it. It was something I had to be around. And when the opportunity came to kind of choose profession, it was one of the first things the only thing I really wanted to do.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Fordham University in New York City, and that's where both my parents attended. Actually graduated in 2004. Went up there, actually, and most people don't believe this, for golf, actually. And it was something, again, I was kind of surrounded with my entire life, knowing my family was big into golf and tennis and whatnot, and we spent a lot of time in Kiawah Island growing up. So it's kind of a golf mecca, one might say. So it was kind of something that I used to get further in my wrestling career because I knew that WWE was 45 minutes away. So in hindsight, or actually not even hindsight, during the whole time, my whole thought process was just get in there and get my foot in the door and see how it goes.
All right, so where'd you grow up?
I was born in New York and actually in Inglewood, New Jersey, but then we moved here when I think it was 8, when my father took a job at Whittle Communications, and went to Sacred Heart and then to Knoxville Catholic High School.
All right, so you know when you go to Fordham, you know the path out of Fordham is what I said. Maybe Wall Street, actor, maybe athlete, but WWE, I'm still not reconciling the two because you ended up actually with the WWE?
Correct. I mean, when I went up there, all my friends were either playing, the guys I played ball with, you know, because I did get involved with the basketball and football teams when I was up there as well, but either they either went on and continued their professional careers in athletics, or they went into, like you said, Wall Street. Fordham's known for its business school, so obviously a lot of people went on to that. And now, you know, 10 years later, I'm glad I went to Fordham because I'm able to use the business acumen I learned while there. But when I was up there, I got an internship with WWE in their corporate office, and that gave me the ability to kind of understand the business from a separate side. And because I knew if I wasn't able to wrestle, I still wanted to have some involvement with it. So it was a tough transition. Then when I graduated, I was lucky that the trainer at the time, the head trainer of WWE, was released and moved back home to Knoxville, Tennessee, where he's from. And I then moved back as well within 6 weeks of each other. And my dad's marketing company, they didn't know they were doing this at the time, but they sent out a FedEx to every Tom Pritchard in within 100 miles, and eventually I knew one would get to him. And I wrote a letter begging him to train me. He trained me. The rest is history. What
is that history?
After I was trained by Dr. Tom, we trained in a old Jiffy Lube in Maynardville, Tennessee, which anybody that's been out to the Maynardville area know it's a different area than the Bronx and New York where I was from. And then we worked some what's called indie shows in the area, and I worked some shows in the Knoxville area for about 6 months. And then Dr. Tom, through his connections, got me in Ohio Valley Wrestling, which is the equivalent of WWE's AAA affiliate. And when I was up there, I was there for about 6 more months, and then I got a tryout with WWE in Houston, Texas. And I was the only one. I think there was like 12,000 people sending in applicants, and I was one of the 10 that got there, so I was all pumped. And I got signed on the spot. And from there, I wrestled for WWE for a period of time until I got injured, and then came back to Knoxville.
Now, did you wrestle under a character name?
You see, in OVW, it's a little bit different. They don't want to put too much into your character because inevitably they're not going to use that on television. So I used my real name, which was Devin Driscoll, in their television programs and with them. So the persona was kind of developed as what's called a baby face. I was the youngest by 10 years in the developmental program. And I was one of the only guys that didn't have a lot of tattoos and piercings at the time. I was probably the most clean-cut guy. I mean, I would show up in golf shirts and jeans, and
Right.
most of the guys would not. So nothing against those guys, just my background was a little bit different in the way I was dressed, so that was kind of an easy progression of what they used for me. And because of that, I was sent out to do a lot of PR and stuff like that because I didn't look like I've killed 9 people. So it was kind of an easy move for me in that role.
So, but you got injured.
I did.
So did that shut down? Because did you want to be John Cena or The Rock or The Miz or who's the top guy now?
Well, I definitely didn't want to be The Miz, but knowing The Miz the way I do. But no, growing up, I wanted to be Hulk Hogan, to be honest with you. That was the guy that I aspired to be. Then you kind of get more involved with the wrestling business and you kind of see how people are, in and out of the ring, and that kind of changed. So yeah, I did want to be a top guy, and I think, from what I hear, you guys are having Kane, I think, on in a few weeks. And
yeah.
Kane is that guy. I mean, Kane has been, to my knowledge, the longest lasting guy in the WWE currently, actually, in the roster. And I never worked with Kane, per se at all. I don't know him personally, but I do know a lot of the guys up there, and they respect him so much because he's, lasted so long. The reason I got out, to be honest, was the fact that when I got in there, I saw the lifestyle that I was going to live besides in the ring. Being on the road 300 days a year, being beat up, and I severely hurt my neck, and I had 3 surgeries within 6 weeks, which was nothing. That wasn't an issue. It was more the fact that I didn't want to be away from my family 300 days a year. And I had a lot of interest outside of wrestling at that point. I was starting to train kids and I always worked with kids for 15 years up to that point, in different kids camps and whatnot. So my interest was starting to sway in different directions, and my thought process was as well. And I kind of saw the path that I was going to take, and I decided to choose another one.
All right, Devin Driscoll is our guest because leaving the WWE actually opened you up to living even more of your dream, which involves helping young athletes become superstars, and also the dream of wrestling is still out there. It's there, but we won't spoil it. We'll tell them in just a minute. Devin Driscoll is my guest. You're watching Anything is Possible.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
It was one of my kids that sat with me and told me that they wouldn't have gotten the scholarship offers they had gotten without what we had done or what I had done with them. And something struck a chord, and I closed a chapter and started a new one.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. My guest is Devin Driscoll. So WWE, you get hurt, you come back home. Let's pick it up from there.
When I moved back home, it was January, I think it was 07, I think it was. And sat down with my dad, and my father, he's very much of an organized, we set plans. We're very similar, very regimented human beings. And we sat down, we tried to put a plan of action together. And I said I wanted to either train or coach. That was what I really wanted to do. I was lucky that the WWE was still hoping that I'd come back, so they paid me for quite some time, actually, after I quit them, almost a whole full year of my base salary. So it kind of gave me some opportunities to look into some different ways I might not have been able to do so. And for that, I'll always be indebted to them for that. That being said, I really just wanted to work with young athletes. I said I was able to reach my dreams and goals by putting in the time in the gym. I wanted to look and perform the best. I might not have wrestled as long or had the experience that some of the other guys had, but I said I was going to look the best and I was going to perform the best. That's all I could control. Everything else was up to them. And I knew that that's something I wanted to convey to my athletes, and I spent this much time learning this craft of training and had this passion of working with kids. I kind of wanted to intertwine that. At the time when I was growing up, there was no performance enhancement gyms in the area. That's something that's really was taboo. There was nothing like it. As I grew and that business grew, I saw it as a great opportunity to kind of combine all my passions into one. So what we wanted to do was get some experience, get my name out there, and market what I was able to do. And so I went on to Fort Sanders Fitness Complex, gained even more education and knowledge, and it's a great starting place for anybody that's in the area that wants to do so. And then also started to build reputations within the community in athletics, especially in football and basketball, which are my 2 biggest passions of sports training. And that's kind of where we slowly built it. I started training kids outside of Fort Sanders in my apartment complex basketball court, and at the YMCA basketball court, and really anywhere I could find, and started with about $500 worth of equipment. and just did the basics and really just taught fundamentals of speed and agility and strength training to athletes. And that was kind of our starting point.
Right. Well, I came out to your place and worked out once.
Yes, this is true. I remember that. Yeah, I totally forgot about that right now. Yeah.
And you guys get it in. Tell me about your company.
Next Level Training is based off of Lowell Road and Outlet Drive. We originally started with about 7,000 square feet of agility and strength training equipment. We've partnered with some local companies like Legend Fitness and Power Systems to provide the top performance enhancement facility in the area. My thought going into it was I didn't care much about the aesthetics outdoor.
Right.
In other words, I didn't care, we're not one of those places that tries to get 1,000 people in the door. We care about getting all the top athletes in the area and providing the best quality training to them. But we also knew that we couldn't train everybody. So we said, let's pick a couple sectors and really focus and do good work. Because we thought to be successful at the end of the day, the thing we need to do is just do good work and do it right by the clients we have. So we started small, and at the time we had 7 competitors. Today we really have 2. We've outlasted a lot of people in the area that have kind of come and gone. And we slowly but surely evolved. And when you came out, we had 11,000 square feet. Today, we have 21,000 square feet.
Wow.
So we slowly but surely have just kind of continued to grow from 7,000 to 11,000 to 21,000. And we don't do contracts and stuff like that. That's not what we do. We train for when you come. That's it. So if you're out of season, we don't see you, you don't pay, you don't do anything. We go to your games, we support you, but you're not in there training. You only pay when you're there. So if we don't do our job, we can't keep the doors open. And we've kind of, like I said, kind of monopolized that market, and I think we do really good work by the people we have.
But you still have wrestling on your mind.
I mean, it's always going to be back there, I think. I mean, it's a passion that I've always will have to the day I die. Probably.
Weren't you even thinking about going in that direction?
It's funny. When we last spoke, we were getting a lot of interest in putting in our own wrestling show and trying to pull me back in, one might say, into the business. And then, to be honest, what happened was I sat down with a few of my kids. This is only about a month ago. And I said, I can either do 2 things. I can either halfway do this and halfway do that, or I can focus on one and go and really hit a home run with it. And I decided to focus on Next Level. And the reason is because my fiance at the time said, whatever you do, I support you 100%. She's great. She could care less as long as we're happy and we can, have a place to live. But with that being said, it was one of my kids that sat with me and told me that they wouldn't have gotten the scholarship offers they had gotten without what we had done or what I had done with them. And something struck a chord, and I closed a chapter and started a new one.
We were over there working on something. This was something that I noticed. We were over there working on, we were shooting a video or whatever we were doing that day. And there were a couple of guys that were on the treadmills in the background. You remember this?
Uh-huh, yep.
And they were clowning.
Oh, of course.
They were clowning. And I did not see that as a distraction. When I drove away from the gym that day, I saw kids that found a home, right? They were loving it. They wanted to be there. I could tell the culture and the atmosphere of Next Level was one where it wasn't just coming in and doing your workout. You were part of a community of people who were all going to the next level. And it was like the young people really wanted to be there. Like there was no, what time is this over? They were all just hanging around. Right. And I can only imagine how satisfying that is to move from just being someone that has a level of expertise that gives it to somebody to being somebody that becomes a friend, a mentor, a partner in their success.
It's weird how that is, and there's no doubt. And it's something that I take more pride into than anything else we do. One of the kids recently, who I absolutely adore, and I don't want to throw him under the bus, said this is his family there, and he feels like he's at home when he's there.
I saw that.
And that to me is as rewarding as anything I did in WWE and then some. I mean, it's not even close. And when you go to these signing days with kids and you see them get to reach their goals and you feel a little part of that, like I said, that's great. But what more importantly means more to me, I should say, is we look back and the best microcosm of what I'm trying to explain is this thing called a 7-on-7 team we have. We got players from Fulton, from CAK, from Webb, from Catholic, from Midway, from all these different areas that come together and are part of this team. And now these kids are hanging out on the weekends. You got kids from Fulton hanging out with kids from Webb, kids from Catholic. That would never have happened without this. And that to me is when I realized we're doing something right.
Pick your next question that we'll answer after the break. See what it is. All right, it says here, if you lost everything and had to start over, what 2 or 3 things do you need? In other words, as long as I've got this and this, I'm good. You'll hear the answer to that question coming up with Devin Driscoll on Anything is Possible.
Coming up.
I was about to get put on, Raw full time and reach my goals and everything I wanted. I thought that I wanted. And then I sent an email and I quit because I wanted to stick by my gut and my morals of what I thought was right.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill, and my guest today is Devin Driscoll, and a young man who believes in possibility. Yeah, possibility, or the word possible, means able to be. And I'm just one of these people who believes that the world moves forward because of the people who believe certain things are able to be. And not only do they believe it, but they act on it. And you are the president and CEO of Next Level Fitness, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So, so I had you pick a question from our bucket here of questions, and the question was, if you lost everything, had to start over from scratch, as long as you've got these 2 or 3 things, you're good.
Yeah, there's one I didn't want to get. I'm going to use, and you probably don't want to have human beings in this, but I'm going to still include them anyway. First would be my fiance. She literally has put up with me, and I would have never put up with me for the past few years like she has. I mean, her name is Allison Nichols. We met here in Knoxville about 5 years ago, and loyalty is one of the biggest things with me. And we spoke about John Cena earlier, and he has this shirt that says hustle, loyalty, and respect. I'm not a John Cena fan, but with my kids, I constantly am preaching that because I think that's 3 of the most important things for them to be successful. And those 3 attributes sum her up in a nutshell. So that'd be the first thing I would think of.
Fiance, and then what else?
My family would be number 2, because I would not be sitting here with you if it wasn't for my dad, my mom, and my sister. We wouldn't be talking. You wouldn't want me on the show.
Who are you most like, your mom or your dad?
I think people that deal with me in a business setting would think my dad, and I am in certain ways. I mean, my dad's an incredibly intelligent human being. I respect my dad for what he's been through, maybe more than anybody else. But I think when it comes to most things, me and my mom are most similar.
Really? How so?
My mom, I don't know how she does what she does. She literally is the therapist, the mediator, and everything in between for our family. And we all go to her with all our problems, and she literally just talks us through it. I mean, between my sister, me, and my dad, and outside family members, to be honest. And I feel I'm that way a lot at Next Level with my kids. I mean, I think that when we're training, not only are we going through what they need to be successful on the field, but we do as much to teach them to be successful off the field. And I'm constantly hearing different issues they have and kind of weaving through what I can do to provide some sort of advice. So I think overall, I think me and her probably have the most similar qualities.
What's the most difficult thing you've had to overcome? Most people that have a great story have something that they had to really fight through and overcome. I talked to your dad about his difficult challenge. What about you?
I think there'd probably be 2 things. One would be sticking together during that time of our family's time. When we went through some pretty large trials and tribulations during my high school career, and inevitably just brought us closer together. And I think having to be kind of the man of the house for a very short period of time and having to be there, I think was one of them. And it's something that I think really made me grow up in certain ways. And then second, and this is probably to some people, like, if that's the biggest problem, you got a pretty good life, was quitting WWE. I mean, I've cried, I can count on one hand, but I cried like a little kid for about 3 days after I quit WWE.
Wow.
On and off. Well, I mean, I spent 23 years at that point just eating, sleeping, and breathing one thing, and wanting to do this, and wanting to do everything I could. I mean, I literally would hitch rides to get to my internship. I jumped trains. I did everything you could just to get there. And so, and then I got it. And then literally if I had stayed through my injury, I was about to get put on, Raw full time and reach my goals and everything I wanted. I thought that I wanted. And then I sent an email and I quit because I wanted to stick by my gut and my morals of what I thought was right. And nothing against the WWE. It was just at my time, that's what I thought was the right thing to do. And that was something that really, it changed my entire life. I mean, right there in one email. So.
Seth Godin talks about, in his book, The Dip, he talks about when to quit, that there's a point at which you have to quit. And sometimes quitting when you're ahead is not the same thing. I heard it in a movie or something. Yeah. It's not the same thing as quitting. Before you get away, treat me as if I'm one of the students that you're working with and you're trying to lay out a roadmap for both possibility and success. What are you telling young people today as you work with them? And what are you telling other young men your age? What are you telling your generation?
With our kids and the athletes that come through there, obviously every one of them has a different goal. And the biggest thing we want to make sure of on the front end is we set short-term goals before long-term goals, because you can't get to C without going through A and B. And so we want to make sure everything we do with them has a rhyme and reason. From a training side, we do this stuff called testing on the front end. We do all these different things we do to provide the most individualized training, and we want to provide the most individualized goals. So for our kids, we want to set things that are realistic in their mind short term, but explain to them there's nothing that's unrealistic long term. I got a kid named Devin Young who's like a little brother to me. And when he was 14 or 15, no one ever thought he'd have the ability to play on Saturdays in the SEC because of his size. In my opinion, he's the best athlete on their team right now. I might be partial, but I truly believe that kid understood that anything is possible. And we wanted to make sure we provided everything we could and all the positive reinforcement we could to make him believe that. With guys my age, I have been asked that question recently. It's funny you asked that because I hadn't been until probably the past year and a half. And I think it's just listening to your gut and your heart of what you should and want to do and make sure they're parallel. Because I wanted to wrestle, but I also didn't, and I didn't listen to my heart. And when I finally did, and whenever I do, and listen to people that care about me, like my mother and father and sister and fiance, when I listen to them and give me advice, unfortunately, I hate to admit, 99 times out of 100, they're right. So I think it's just going with what you're passionate about and listening to people who care about you and what they think. If you do that, I don't think you can go wrong.
Wow. What a great story of possibility, and I wish you all the best. Devin Driscoll, thanks for being on the broadcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll see you next week.